Hello friends, this is Shivam Dubey from English Kingdom, Katra, Prayagraj. Welcome to the class. We are continuing with PB Shelley, and as you may see, once again we are here with the three works of PB Shelley that will include Julian and Maddalo. The next work will be the Cenci, and the last one, the Ode to the West Wind. Almost all of us have seen it and have almost studied it. How important poem that is, we can simply guess. But before we move to that poem, we have to go with a kind of conversation of Julian and Maddalo, and we'll move to the next. That would be the verse drama, the Cenci. And finally, we'll move to the poem Ode to the West Wind with its text and some important details related to the poem. When it comes to Julian and Maddalo, it is a conversational poem. Conversational poem which he possibly wrote between possibly in autumn of 1818, composed autumn of 1818. Okay, we can simply guess in 1818, Shelley was in Italy, and at the time he was living at a villa which was named like I Capuccini. I Capuccini. That was the name of the villa where he was living at the time. And there he composed this poem. This is actually no doubt conversation, but remember, as a genre, it is poem. The poem is composed in a kind of heroic couplet, not very regularly, but yes, heroic couplets have been employed in the poem. The total length of the poem goes to be 617 lines. 617 lines, and that says that it is not very perfect use of heroic couplet. So at some places we will see that the poem was to be violated. Okay, when the poem was written, it was a conversation where the two characters, Julian and Maddalo, have been introduced in the preface of the poem. The preface of the poem introduces these two characters, that we can take Maddalo, who is to be Lord Byron. Maddalo is to be Lord Byron, whom he has shown as a rich Venetian noble. Venetian noble. And when it comes to Julian, Julian is a rich Englishman, but a better understanding of life. An Englishman, PB Shelley himself, an Englishman of rich family. Again, it is like a rich family. So the two have the conversation, and the two have their different views of conversation. The poem seems to be inspired from the two works of Lord Byron, that's Beppo and Don Juan. Inspired from Beppo, that is a work of Lord Byron, and no doubt Don Juan, the two works of Lord Byron. What is the major inspiration behind this poem? There is an interesting anecdote relating to its publication. At first, it was intended to be published in the Examiner. That was intention, and which came with 1819. There was the final version of the poem. And it was supposed that this should be published by Examiner, but not, means could not be published. The later idea to publish was to be published by James Charles Ollier as anonymous poem. Anonymous publication, but once again failed. Means the two attempt of publication, at first to be published by Examiner, was not done, and the second was to be published by Charles Ollier, could not be done. Finally, it appeared after the death of P.B. Shelley in 1824 in the collection Posthumous Poems. Posthumous Poems of P.B. Shelley appeared in 1824. So, this poem was first published here. And this was edited by Mary Shelley, wife of P.B. Shelley. Somewhere the poem is based on the two ideas. We can go with the first one, that bitter cynicism, that of Count Maddalo, bitter cynicism of Count Maddalo, and that goes versus Count Maddalo had a bitter cynicism that may relate to Lord Byron, and that is Julian's atheism and faith in the potentiality of man. Faith and atheism in the potentiality of man. Potentiality of a man means man has the potential to do anything, and that is why there is no need of anything like a faith in old system and all such things. So the two scholars that had been making conversation, their conversation was based on the two contrary themes, like one that's a cynicism, and the one that had the open idea and open mind. We can relate to its atheism. This atheism is not entirely atheistic idea. Instead, it was Shelley's atheistic idea. And when Shelley is talking about his atheism, it is very simple, that he talks about the potentiality of man, something that man himself is able to do. He does not need any kind of supernatural power or any other kind of assistant to perform his action. So the two had a contrary idea, and that was the theme which he started composing in autumn of, started as I must say, autumn of 1818, but the final version comes in 1819. When it comes to publication, quite dramatic. At first you were traded with the Examiner, but not. Then it was Charles Ollier to publish it anonymously, but couldn't succeed. And finally it's published after the death of the poet in 1824. And that had the two. Well, one thing I should remind you that this poem, Julian and Maddalo, had a strong influence on Robert Browning. Strong influence on Robert Browning. We all know Robert Browning especially goes with dramatic monologue. So this can be related to dramatic monologue of Robert Browning. So this is how the poem is quite important to be understood and to be thought as a useful publication which was done during the lifetime of the poet. Not done during the lifetime. Remember, it was not published when the poet was here on the earth. After his death, it was his widow, Mary Shelley, to publish this work in 1824. The poem is quite lengthy. As I said, that there are 617 lines, almost composed in irregular kind of pattern relating to heroic couplets. Now we'll move to the next, and that is the drama. And as I told you in introduction, it is kind of verse drama composed as a tragedy as well, a kind of family tragedy, had a incestuous theme which we found even in the revolt of Islam. So something that Shelley's free idea had a problem, and the problem was related to the Cenci as well. Okay, complete title, The Cenci, a tragedy in 5 acts. A tragedy in 5 acts. That is almost the subtitle with the Cenci, and I told you a kind of family tragedy, you will see. Family tragedy. There is incestuous theme as well suggested, that is between daughter and father. Well, the play is a kind of verse drama. Verse play or drama. Shelley had a strong desire that it should be staged, but yes, there had been a problem. This was composed between May and 5th August. Between May and 5th August of 1819. Well, this was published by Charles and James Ollier in London in 1819. James and Charles Ollier in London 1819, the same year when it was published. Written, it was published. There is a very interesting episode, the one that's a London edition. You may say like London edition, we can name it. And the second, the same year that was published was Livorno edition. Livorno. A very interesting thing about Livorno edition is that this was published by P.B. Shelley himself the same year with 250 copies. Italy, 250 copies only that he published by Shelley himself. So no publisher in Livorno, so he himself published this edition in Italy. After its publication, he wrote a letter to his close friend Thomas Love Peacock, and told why he decided to go for the publication himself. We know he is a friend, Thomas Love Peacock. I must dictate you the lines. You may quote. It costs with all duties and freightage, all duties and freightage, 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 about half of what? About half of what it would cost in London. It would cost in London. So possibly the reason was the cost that he decided to publish himself. Well, the poem was once again published and the second edition appeared in 1821. The publication, the first was in 1819 and the second edition appeared in 1821. One thing that is interesting about this work, and I think you should keep in your mind, is about its publication. The Cenci is the only work of P.B. Shelley that was published twice during his lifetime. Okay? Only work published twice. Published twice, or you may say second edition. Okay? Twice or second edition during his lifetime. So this is how it becomes important, and you need to keep it in your mind, that Cenci is the only work that was published during the lifetime of the poet second time as well. The theme is based on incest and parricide. I told you already, incestuous theme is there, and with that that is the parricide. I think you got the parricide. That's a murder of father. So the two themes, incestuous theme and parricide, the two themes are there that are related. The play had its setting in 1599 in Rome. Setting is related to 1599 and that is Rome. Well, it is somehow based on the real incident which was documented by Italian history writer Ludovico Antonio Muratori. Ludovico Antonio Muravico, and his work that he wrote, it's Ludovico Antonio Muratori. Muratori was there. Okay, it is Muratori. The name of the writer, Italian writer, history writer you may say, and he wrote the story of this incestuous theme in his work that was named like Annali di Italia. Annali di Italia. This was a work of Ludovico Antonio Muratori that appeared in 1749. 1749. It seems like this work of P.V. Shelley, the Cenci, was somehow inspired from this incident or this writing of Ludovico Antonio Muratori, and he wrote this with the central characters that we go with like Count Francesco Cenci, Count Francesco Cenci is a father and a brutal man whose death will be planned here. The second would be his daughter Beatrice Cenci. She had been the one possibly raped by Francesco himself. His father raped the daughter, as it is suggested in the play. The next is Lucrezia Cenci. That is the wife. See, this is daughter and this is second wife. From first daughter, Beatrice was the first wife, it was Cenci the daughter. Lucrezia was the second wife and stepmother of the children. There is a cardinal named Cardinal Camillo, who was a major character as the starting of the play. The next is Orsino, an important character. Orsino, who is a prelate and a lover of Beatrice as well. Lover of Beatrice, and somehow he is the only surviving major character during Savella. Savella that comes with the news of Pope and unfortunate incident happens when he reaches there. The next is Andrea. That is servant of Count Francesco The next is Margio. Margio is also going to play an important role. He is an assassin that was employed to kill or murder Francesco Marzio. The next one is Olimpio. The next assassin. He was also employed to murder Count Francesco. The next is Giacomo. Giacomo is a son of Count Francesco and was also instrumental to kill Bernardo. And Bernardo is also son of Count Cenci. Next is Rocco. Is also son of Count Cenci. Cristofano is also son of Count Francesco. Okay, I will narrate you the story in a very short. Okay, so the story starts when we see on the screen that it is Cardinal Camillo who is discussing with Count Francesco Cenci about the incidents that is a murder, and Cenci has been implicated. Cenci is a kind of sadistic man, I must say. Francesco Cenci, he is a sadistic man, and to satisfy his sadism, he sent his two sons, Rocco and Cristofano, to the place that was named as Salamanca. The place Salamanca is such a place that was facing starvation, and he sent his sons to be dying there. Finally, the two sons die, and this had been very touching and painful to Beatrice. She is actually the one that goes to take Lucrezia in and tells about her being possibly raped by her own father. And from there, all members decide to kill him. And it was actually Orsino, who was a prelate and a lover of Beatrice as well. They all got ready to kill the count, and for that they decide to take the help of Marzio and Olimpio. At first attempt, their murder plan fails. The second attempt, once again, the two have been employed, and it seems like even in the second attempt they were not ready to kill. So when Beatrice Cenci says that she will kill, they go and just strangle the count. He was strangled, and his body was thrown. Unfortunate, there was a pine tree, and with pine tree, the body of the count hangs. Already Savella is on the way. Savella is on the way to punish Count for a murder that was already discussed here between Cardinal and Francisco. But unfortunate thing happened. When he reached there, he saw that the Count had been murdered, and then the charge has been laid. All have been captured except Orsino. Orsino disguised himself and could not be caught. All other have been caught. It was actually Marzio that revealed the first. He confessed, and then they all confessed. And by the end, it was Beatrice who continuously said that they were not the part of this murder. Still, the whole family was killed, and even the last hope from the Pope to relieve them from this kind of charge like parricide, it was actually overlooked, and all have been hanged. By the end, it was Beatrice whose statement comes there, and she says very happily, the statement was the final words from Beatrice: "We are quite ready. Well, it is very well. We are quite ready. It is very well." So that is how the play, the Cenci, proves to be a family tragedy where all sons and daughter and family wife all have been executed for the murder. So it is, once again you may say, like something that the chance had, because Pope had declared the execution of Count, but unfortunate was that when Savella reached, the Count was already murdered, and so the charge comes to other Cenci, and this is how the whole family of Cenci was executed. There was no one left except Orsino, and Orsino, as I said you, was a prelate, was a lover of Beatrice, and disguised himself and was saved. Somewhat good effort, and I must tell you that this play was actually performed not at his time, quite later. I must remind you that Cenci was performed quite later by Shelley Society, and I must say that it was in 1886 actually when Shelley Society, I remind you, had its performance in 1886. Shelley Society, interesting thing, you must note it, and the performance was done and some audience included great scholars like Oscar Wilde was a part of the audience. There was Robert Browning, he was also there. Robert Browning watching the performance of this play of Shelley. Along with him, there was G.B. Shaw. So they had been the great. But yes, the final publication, presentation of the play comes actually in 1922, staged in London. Remember these facts we were discussing about the play, the Cenci, right? So the point I think somewhere we missed is about its performance. Shelley thought it would be performed during his lifetime, but what he found that it could never be performed when he was alive, and finally after his death, quite later after his death, in 1886 it had its first performance, and that was a kind of closed society type of performance that was for the Shelley Society, as I told you, and that included some great audience including Oscar Wilde, Robert Browning and George Bernard Shaw. So finally, for public performance, the play was to be performed in 1922 and that was done in London. So that were the facts actually related to the Cenci as a play, as a work of P.B. Shelley. And right, we will move. One more thing I would like to tell, that the play was inspired from the painting of Guido Reni. Painting that was made of Beatrice Cenci. Okay, this painting was made by Guido Reni actually, Guido Reni, and this P.B. Shelley saw, and from this painting of Guido Reni, he was actually inspired to write this play. Remember these three important elements. Okay. So about stage performance, and when it comes to the theme and performance, all such things, we just discussed it. Now I'll move to the next, and that would be the great work Ode to the West Wind. We all know the poem had been a kind of landmark in the life of P.B. Shelley as a poet and as a person as well, I must say. Ode to the West Wind was possibly inspired from the event of Peterloo massacre. Peterloo massacre that took place in 1819. So possibly this inspired the poem Ode to the West Wind. This poem was published with collections that had the poems like Mask of Anarchy, Mask of Anarchy. The second work, that is Prometheus Unbound. Prometheus Unbound. And the third work is London in 1819. London in 1819. So all the four works seems to be inspired from Peterloo massacre, but particularly it is this ode. Particularly, it is this ode to the West Wind. This also takes the theme of political change, revolution, and the role of the poet. The themes: political change, revolution, the role of the poet. Remember what he thought about the role of the poet was described by him in Defense of Poetry. I think we all should know what he describes about the role of the poet. I must go with the line dictating what is said. In 1819 he wrote, "Poets are hierophants, Hierophants, hierophants of an unapprehended inspiration, an unapprehended inspiration, semicolon, the mirrors of gigantic shadows, the mirrors of gigantic shadows which futurity casts upon the present, semicolon, the words which express what they understand not, semicolon, the trumpet which sings to battle, the trumpets which sing to battle, comma, and feel not what they inspire, semicolon, the influence which is moved not, comma, but moves, full stop. Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. Through this, he was very able to clear that the poet are something that they themselves do not realize what they can do. Still, they can be seen as an unacknowledged legislators, the one that gives the rule to the world. So they are the one that gives rule to the world, but they did not actually understand what they are. So through this poem, he had gone with the three major themes highlighted that we note here to be the political change, revolution, and the role of the poet. The poem is actually there with kinetic images that he wrote in Florence, Italy, composed in Florence, Italy. The poem was composed there, and it was composed in 1819 to be published in 1820. Publication was done in 1820. And that had been done by, naturally, James and Charles Ollier. They had been a constant publisher. And the collection that comes with the title like Prometheus, Unbound, and a lyrical drama in 4 acts with other poems. The collection was Prometheus, Unbound, a lyrical drama in 4 acts with other poems. That was published in 1820, and in this collection it was included. This became a famous work of P.B. Shelley. The poem had been written in terza rima with the 5 cantos. 5 cantos, and each canto is in a terza rima. We all know terza rima was introduced by Dante Alighieri in his work Divina Commedia, and that simply takes like the lines as a 14 lines in each and had interlocked rhyming, with tercet and couplet. There would be 4 tercets and 1 couplet. That makes it to be 14 lines, as we just estimate. The rhyming will go like this one. Tercets in the same pattern like A, B, C, B, C, D, C, D, E, D, and the couplet comes like E, E. So this will go to be the rhyming scheme or rhyming pattern we will note for the poem here, right? And now it is time for us to move, and you see that the poem will maintain the pattern of iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter, the lines that generally are employed here. And now we'll go with a simple interpretation of the poem that starts with the lines like this. Remember, whenever the poem has been composed, if the nature has been asked, I don't think there would be any doubt. The poem maintains the nature of ode with the title as well, Ode to the West Wind. So I don't think any problem would be there, right? Especially the ending line of the poem you will take, and the poem will take us through the 3 places that will go like the journey of the wind from the earth, sky and the sea. The 3 places, and all these 3 that are supposed to be the most powerful have been somehow won by this west wind, and that is why the poet has gone with a prophetic style and optimistic and prophetic style he has used. He speaks like a prophet through the poem, and to be very futuristic, to be very optimistic, and not to be disappointed. Okay, by the end the line is very important. Let's we go with the text of the poem. In a simple way, we would like to explain. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter's fling. Right, you see that the poet is going to compare the falling of the leaves to the flying of the ghost when they see the enchanter. In the same way, when the leaves of a tree see the west wind coming, they also start falling in the colors like yellow, black, pale, hectic red. It seems like there is some pestilence, there is some kind of disease that had killed in multitude, in many numbers. Oh, thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed. It seems like this west wind takes the weed, takes the seed along with it, like the flying birds, to the winged seed where they lie cold and low, the seed that are put some places, each like a corpse within its grave. When the seed are placed, it seems like dead, and they are compared to some dead bodies. Until thine azure system of spring shall blow, and this seed will, like a dead man, be in the grave, in the on the ground, actually dead like, before the time of spring. When it is time of spring, azure, that is kind of sweet blowing, starts blowing, and her clarion to the dreaming earth that gives energy to this dead like earth, and fill driving sweet birds like flock to feel in the air. Everywhere the earth that some months ago seemed like dead is full of sweet flowers, and that seems to be full of energy everywhere, with the living hue and order plain and here. Whether it is plain, whether it is ill, everywhere there is order, sweet smell, there is a hue, there are colors, and that is the life it has given. Wild spirit which art moving everywhere. Why this changing is on this earth? It is because of this west wind. The west wind is able to make the leaves of a tree fall and also give the birth to the new plants, new flowers, and new seed and new fruits. That is why the poet comes with the concept like destroyer and preserver. One way this destroys the old leaves, and the next way it gives life to the seed, and that's why the poet is actually addressing this west wind for some purpose. We will see the later. The second canto goes like the world of sky. Thou on whose stream mid the steep sky's commotion, it is the west wind that takes the clouds on its back and takes the clouds on the very steep and the very middle part of the sky. Loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are shed. Like the decaying leaves are shed on the earth, in the same way the clouds are also loosed on the surface of the sky by this wind. Shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. This can be seen as a tree. Then the tree has its root in the ocean and the branches in the sky. So that is how the wind has shaken. So the clouds are coming and they are floating, covering whole surface of the sky. Angel of rain and lightning. Remember, this west wind can be seen through the image of cloud, that it can bring rain, it can bring lightning. Thou art there are spread on the blue surface of thine airy surge. The whole clouds are spread on the very surface surge that had been prepared by this wind, like the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce maid. This had been, the clouds have been compared to the hair of some dancers that are to be seen as a maid, that are in Greek mythology. And the hair of the maid during the dance is spread all over, and she seems to be doing something like with some strong desire. In the same way, the clouds on the surface of the sky had that strong desire to do something very much like rain and lightning. Some fierce maid over even the dim verge of the horizon to the zenith side. Every corner, whether it is zenith side or it's a dim horizon, neither part of this whole universe was left without cloud. It means the whole world was in a darkness and under this cloud. of the dying year, it seems like, the locks of the approaching storm. The clouds have been compared to the lock of that beautiful, fierce mannered that may bring some physical intimacy with the lover, as a storm it has been seen here with the rain and all such things. In the same way, this cloud will come with that storm. Thou dirge of the dying year, it seems like the sky had that melancholic touch, painful touch, and that's why the poet says that it is dirge, to which this closing night will be the dome of vast sepulchre, and the night that is ending is going to be seen as a dome that can be for the vast sepulchre. Sepulchre is kind of a roof, vast sepulchre, vaulted with all thy congregated might. How this is? It seems like the wind is supporting the wall of the sepulchre and the night is ending. So it's kind of grave has been made ready, if you can imagine. Of vapors from whose solid atmosphere, when it is cloud, when it is dark, when it is very calm and the air is just balancing this white world as a sepulchre. So it seems like something is going to happen, and what will be happening? Solid atmosphere of black rain can be there, fire can be there, and hell will burst. Means it can be the hail, something to be welcomed like beautiful rain. It can be some fire that can be seen as a lightning, and no doubt black rain. We can see that something that's harmful is going to be there. So if it's a beautiful rain, it will be creative, and if it is going to be black rain or it's going to be fire, it's going to be destroyed. So once again, the dual role, even on the surface of the sky, this wind is able to perform. Now we'll move to the earth, surface of the sea. Thou who didst awaken from his summer dreams, the blue Mediterranean, this wind has a power to shake and wake the blue Mediterranean, who was simply sleeping, as had been personified here, and was wakened, where he lay lulled by the coil of his crystalline stream. This Mediterranean sea has been seen like a baby, that with the music can be lulled, can be sleeping, and like that, the continuous falling in a rhythmic fall of the waves can create some music, and this Mediterranean sea is able to get the music and is sleeping like a child. Beside a pumice isle in Bays Bay, there is a Bay of Bays, and that is a pumice isle very much known for volcanoes underground, and sign asleep old palaces and towers squaring. This Mediterranean has been seen as a baby that could see a fearful dream where everything, whether it is palace, whether it is tower, everything is squaring, it is shaking within the waves intenser day. It is intenser day, shining day, and the waves of the sea had the image of all these towers and palaces quivering. All overgrown with azure moss and flowers, everything seems to be full of with azure moss, that's a beautiful wind that had all greenery over there with the flowers. So sweet, the sense friends picturing them. The picture is a very sweet one, and anybody can be smitten to this, can be smitten by the beauty of the place. So one way destroying like a quivering palace and towers, and the next way creating beautiful scene. So destruction and creation going all together. Whose path, thou for whose path the Atlantic's level powers cleave themselves into chasm. The poet is going to glorify this west wind and tells in a very clear word that this west wind is so powerful that even Atlantic is forced to give path and divide itself into chasm, so that this west wind can go and move freely. While far below, the sea blooms and the woozy woods, and just because of this west wind, even in the depth of the sea, there can be blooming, there can be some flowers, and they can be blooming. And under flower blooming and outside on the surface, it is like which while far below the sea blooms and the oozy woods which wear the sapless foliage of the ocean. And on the surface, those that are the tree, they have no power. They have no power to feel, and that is why they look green, but there is no foliage. That's why he says sapless foliage. The foliage, the grass are sapless, without any juice, without any energy. Know thy voice. The plants, the trees that are whether underwater or out of water, they all know the voice of this west wind, and they are so much afraid of with the arrival of this west wind that know thy voice and suddenly grow grey with fear. All these, whether it is Mediterranean Sea, whether it is Atlantic Ocean, whether the plants that are inside the water, whether the plants that are outside of the water, they all know the voice of this west wind, and when the wind is seemed to be coming, they all are full of terror, and they start shivering and start dividing and tremble and despoil themselves. Oh, here the sea, the ocean, the plant, the flowers, they all can start trembling, and they all are ready to despoil themselves, to destroy themselves entirely. So once again, even on the surface of this ocean and the sea, this west wind is very influential, can be the reason behind creation, like the flowers are blooming, like the every area is full of plants, and can be the reason behind destruction, like the palaces and towers in Mediterranean and Atlantic. They all are full of fear to be cleaving, dividing themselves into chasm. So these had been the three powerful sources that man can believe as a symbol of the power of universe. Even these powers are under the influence of this west wind. I have just mentioned here earth, sky and sea. If the west wind is so much powerful, the poet has all that willingness to ask this powerful west wind to do something favor to him. So now in the fourth and fifth canto, we will see the poet asking something as a favor to be done to him by the west wind. So now we'll move to the fourth, how he compares himself to different objects. You may see, if I were a dead leaf, thou mightest bear. The first stanza, where he talks about the falling leaves and compares himself to be the dead leaves and expects that the west wind will bear him. If I were a swift cloud to fly with thee. And the second stanza, he talks about the world of sky with the clouds, and here he compares himself to cloud, and he thinks if he were to be cloud, he would be taken by the west wind. A wave to pant beneath the power and share the impulse of thy strength. Right, he says that he thinks himself, the third place, the sea, as a waves. If he is a wave, he is able to feel the power that's a force wind implies on the wave, feel the power, thy power and impulse of thy strength. Everything like impulse, feeling of the strength and the power that he will feel. He will feel the power and impulse of the west wind as a leaf, as a cloud, as a wave. Only less free than thou, O uncontrollable. He is now going to speak about the idea of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, if you can remember, about freedom. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and that is, man is born free, but everywhere he is in chain, and he will see. He will let us go through that idea of childhood when the man seems to be very free and almost free like this west wind. That's what he is going to compare. Only less free than thou, O uncontrollable. He compares himself to be the companion, to be the friend, to be someone that would be flying, moving with this west wind, very much similar to be like him, like a free, like a something having that uncontrollable ideas. Though this west wind is uncontrollable, something little less than this uncontrollable spirit the child had. Even if I were as in my boyhood, could be the comrade of thy wandering over heaven. He is now comparing himself. If he is a man who was to be still living in a boyhood, in his childhood, he would have been the comrade, he would have been the companion of this west wind even over the heaven. As then, when to outstrip thy scarce seemed with. When he was a young boy, it did not seem to be difficult for him to outspeed the west wind. It seems like boys are always free, they always are moving and jumping and running. They did not feel any kind of tiredness and anything like that. There is no anxiety and all such things. So they are very free. That is a freedom, and the poet thinks that he would have been the comrade of this west wind if he was there to be in a boyhood. But what he says, I would never have striven as thus with thee in prayer in my sore need. No doubt as a boy never goes for a prayer to the west wind for freedom, because he is born free and seems to be free. But with the passage of time, when responsibilities come, man is in his chain, that he is going to speak now. Oh, lift me as a wave, a leaf, a cloud. I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. This is the miserable situation that man goes through as a free-born child. Later on, through under the pressure of these responsibilities and all the dreams and passion, he is forced to be bleeding, he is forced to be crying under the thorns of life. A heavy weight of ours is chained and bobbed. He had been chained, he had been bobbed by the heavy weight of ours. What are these? These are the responsibilities, the duties, the expectations that one has in his life as a child. One too like thee, tameless and swift and proud. Remember, the boy was very much like this west wind, was tameless, nobody could control, was swift, moving fast, and was proud. But with the passage of time, he had been chained, he had been bobbed, and that's because of this heavy weight of ours. That's a beautiful line you must keep in your mind. Now I'll move to the last canto. And you may have seen the plight of the poet as well. So this is why now he is going to invoke, he is going to appeal, and he will ask this west wind to come and help him. He says, make me thy lyre even as the forest is. He is going to speak very pleadingly, you may say, to this west wind, that he should be made as a flute, as a lyre. Lyre very much like the forest. Just try to imagine when the wind passes through the forest, a kind of sound is created. That is sound he is talking about. Make me thy lyre even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? He does not care. He does not care if his leaves are falling. Leaves now here can be compared to his thought, to his imagination. Remember, when one is to be passing through something, no doubt he will get something new, and to get something new we have to lose something old, and the poet has compared these old to be dead leaves, and something that new he will get to the new leaves. Like when it is autumn, all leaves have been swept away by this west wind, and when it is a spring, the whole garden is full of leaves and flowers and fruits, just because of that autumn. So a process of, remember, he believed in cycle of nature. We have just discussed already actually, and once again he is going to talk the nature of cycle here in the lines. Make me thy lyre even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autumnal tone. From both here stands from the forest and from the poet. This will take away what? take away deep autumnal tone. Autumnal tone, tone of sadness, tone of pain, tone of old age, a tone of oldness as well, we can say. Something that is outdated and is still there, so it should be swept away. So we'll take away this autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. That is kind of antithetical. Something that one is losing is giving sense of sweetness. Losing and sweetness, something antithetical that he is talking here. Why is this sweet and why this is sad? The sad because he is losing something, and sweet because he is expecting to get something better than that. Very much idea that was expressed by William Wordsworth in Tin Turn Away as well. When one is losing something to nature, nature will give better with the abundant recompense, if you remember. Be thou fierce, spirit fierce, my spirit. He asked this west wind to be the spirit of the poet. Be thou me impetuous one. He wants that this west wind should be impetuous, uncontrollable, most powerful, and would be able to do anything like the poet himself is. Drive my dead thought over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. I was just giving you the hint that withered leaves are dead leaves, and this west wind is able to take away these dead leaves, and going away of these dead leaves is the reason behind the birth of the new leaves. And the same way, the poet is requesting and pleading that this west wind should take away all the dead thought of the poet, and this will give a chance for the birth of new thought in the life of the poet. Like withered leaves to quicken a new birth, and by the incantation of this verse, the verse that he is composing, this poetry, this poem especially Ode to the West Wind, and he is going to, with the sounding pronunciation of this verse, scattered as from extinguished earth, ashes and sparks. He is talking about the words that are new to be like a spark, the words, the thought that are the old will be like ashes, and both because of this west wind will spread. Remember, will spread. Spark will go and ashes will go. Ashes will show the sign of end, and sparks will show the sign of birth. My words among mankind be through my lips to an unawakened earth, a trumpet of a prophecy. Right, he is going to be prophetic, he is going to be very optimistic, and the same natural idea that he always thought, he always think, he always suggest everyone to believe in the process of chain, nature's chain that keeps cycling, keeps cycling. So this keep cycling and the cycling of nature is once again the idea that he is going to express, cycling process of nature. That's what he had been a great believer. Once again, he is speaking there in this poem, and he considers himself in a very prophetic style. Like a prophet, he says that, O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far beyond? This had that rhetorical question, this had that optimistic appeal, this had the appeal of P.B. Shelley or Shelleyan thought of cycling. I just went through the idea cycling process of this nature, and everything has its ending, whether it's a creation or destruction. It will never be all the time destruction, it will never be all the time creation, and this is why man should never be troubled, never be disturbed with anything that is momentary. He should be always ready to meet something good after a diverse situation, after a melancholic situation, after a painful condition. He must be ready to face something good. This is the optimistic news, that an idea that he wanted to share. And thanks a lot for watching. Keep watching, keep learning, and keep working hard. Thank you very much.